Not sure where I do. Oh, and so I
Hi.
go, got it.
Yeah, there we are. Hi, James.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Metaphysical Wisdom Podcast. This is Cyndi Silva. I'm here with my friend James Bryer. James is zooming in from central Minnesota. What's the weather like there today, James?
It's really nice,
Oh, it's
Cyndi, for
good.
us. Yes,
Good.
yes. There's still snow everywhere on the ground,
Uh-huh.
but it's in the 40s. It's sunny. It's bright. And I have been skiing every day for almost 3 months.
Wow.
And today was the first day. It was just warm enough and slushy enough that I had to switch over to hiking. So I think this is the beginning of a new season here.
Right around the corner, spring, right?
That's what I'm hoping. Yeah,
I've got daffodils in my space, so it's a good reminder of spring too.
sure.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to have you come on for a conversation because I got back into hosting these conversations, which I find very inspiring and uplifting. And you were the one who introduced me to Qigong, and I've been having a number of Qigong teachers on and having conversations with them. And I wanted to go back to how I was introduced to Qigong and invite you in for a conversation and let it go from there and see what else arises. But I want to thank you for introducing me to this amazing field of possibility and longevity and all the wonderful gifts that it has brought to my life. And I've been able to become a teacher and share it with others. So your little introduction several years ago, I think it was around 2009, has blossomed into a community and just a lovely experience of exchanging and sharing. So thank you.
Oh, that's sweet to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the idea. In fact, I think it's kind of, there are many, many examples in my life where it feels to me like I've introduced people to things and then they've taken it far beyond where I am. And it's like, I just love that. I love to see how people grow into their true size. You know? Yeah,
That's a nice way
really
to put it.
beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I want to share your website with people because that's how we originally met. You hired me to design a website for you several years ago, and it's called softeningtolove.com. And you put out a newsletter. You share your writing, which is beautiful. You write beautifully, and you often write about spaciousness. And I thought we could maybe tap into that wisdom a little bit because you hold space for people day in and day out in your practice. So let's have you share a little bit about what you do day in and day out as your service to humanity, and then how that also fits into your life and your personal practices.
Wow, thank you. Well, you know, I'm a psychologist and psychotherapist. I've been actually working full time as a psychotherapist for almost 50 years. And I love it. And I find that I'm growing with it. And that one of the biggest pieces of it for me has something to do, and you alluded to that, with creating space. Creating space actually within myself as well, and then creating space in the relationship. And in that space, there is a freedom to grow into our true size, to be who we are, and to free ourselves from some of the limits that we place on ourselves. Most of us have made an implicit bargain with life somewhere along the line, you know, in childhood, that we would contract and do away with certain parts of ourselves in order to really belong in whatever system we grew up in. And it's not easy to let go of those constraints. We have a lot of things in place that as soon as we start to grow out of them, we get scared, or or we get shamed or something like that. And so I get to see a lot of heroism,
Mm.
People over time giving themselves more space and facing all of those barriers that kind of keep them contained. Yeah, so it's lovely work. I enjoy it very much.
Mm. Yeah, it's similar to that pattern you said about where you introduce people to things and they take it beyond. It's like you introduce people to a more spacious side of themselves, and then they get to take that into their lives and hopefully let it have its way with them.
Yes, and in ways that we couldn't predict. It's an unfolding and it's a blossoming like your flowers, and it's just beautiful. And really awesome. And, I feel awe often when I see what happens with folks, and sometimes even with what's happening inside of me, I go, oh wow.
Of course, it's all a big mirror, big.
Yeah.
And what I remember about you also was your many trips to the Boundary Waters. The BWCA is the Boundary Water Canoe Area. That's bordering Minnesota and Canada. And I think I took at least 4 trips there. And just the spaciousness there, so transportive. And your connection to nature has just always been something that's a consistent, like you've been very disciplined. I don't know if that's the word because you're so passionate about it. It's not something you have to work at, but you're so consistent in your relationship to nature. And what is the connection there to spaciousness and nature?
Wow, lovely
For
question.
You.
Yeah, for me.
No pressure.
Yeah. Here's the word that popped into my mind. I'm a little embarrassed to say it, but God.
No.
And so that's actually, there's no way to define that concept. But for me, spaciousness is certainly an aspect of that, a vastness of consciousness and love that connects us all. It's a web of energy, and I experience it in my connection with the trees and with the waters and with the birds and the critters and with the beauty. And then, of course, there is some spaciousness even with, you look and there's big sky or big thunderheads, coming in. And so, for example, even at the physical level, solidity, the experience of something being solid, is really a myth that we know now that everything is mostly empty space. But for me, and I think a lot of spiritual folks, that spaciousness is not empty. And so that's really central for me. And so that everywhere in that spaciousness is the energy of love, is the energy that connects us all. And so in that spaciousness, we are not confined, we are limitless in some ways. And I know at the level of our ego, we are quite limited, but there's this other level, where there is no limit. That there's a vastness within us and around us that we're just all part of, and all connected in. And it's it really touches me.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, they're both available simultaneously, right? This limitation of the ego that can get things done and a vehicle for making things happen, and then this spaciousness that's going nowhere. It's like we've just over-identified with that, getting things done and accomplishing things, and that it's sort of like the space that's always there, that is truly who we are, gets sort of put in the background. And as we turn our attention to it, which is all that's really required, is turning our attention to it. And so you really, this is what I see you doing, is turning people's attention towards what's already there.
Amen.
Who they are. And it's not becoming something.
Exactly. We don't have to be somebody else.
Yeah.
It's pretty futile. Yeah.
It's so generous, right? I mean, it's just always there. Like, and there's no, like you said, no limits on it. And I remember, I see you as a very generous person. I remember being young and just new at human design, and you invited me into your community. You have a group that you lead, that you've been leading for many, many years. And you invited me in and let me share human design with them in your home one day. And I just thought that was really generous. And then you handed me $100 bill after, and I was like, what? I'm getting paid to do this? So I just wanted to tell you, if I didn't already, how that touched me. It really made me think, oh, I could actually make money at this. And and I am making money at it. So I'm glad that you planted that seed of possibility in my perception. And so much to be grateful for. And
for sure, Cyndi. And I've been, I talked to you about feeling awed as I watched people blossom. I've had that experience with you. It's been a real joy to see. How I see it as really courageous. That whatever constraints we may have had or may have been living with, as we move through those and break through those and maybe love ourselves through them in some ways, accompany ourselves through them. That's what courage is. That's what courage is. There's no courage without fear.
Right. I think for me, if I don't have any fear, or I'm not really growing, right? If I'm not challenging.
That is one of the ways we know. It used to be that fear let us know that something was dangerous, and we better, and that's what it does. It has us be careful and has us turn around and don't go forward or something like that. But fear is also now a kind of an indicator that we must be doing something right.
Change our relationship with it.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of that, okay, go ahead.
Yes, go. No, go.
I was just thinking, like, right now there is a lot of fear in the collective, right? And maybe it is an invitation to change our relationship to fear, and being someone who holds space for people in times of challenge and transition. I just wonder if there's a certain pattern you see in your practice with people and what they're navigating, and the relationship to change and fear, and how that might have changed over 50 years. Seems like you've seen some change in psychology and how we address things. And I wonder what stands out for you as a big change in how you hold space for people, if anything.
This really brings us full circle, because the shift I see both in my field of psychology and the world of therapy, but also in fits and starts in the larger world, is a movement toward spaciousness. A movement toward being less rigid about roles, less rigid about the way you have to be okay in the world. And I know we get backlash from that. We make some progress in that direction, and then there's some backlash. But I even think about the movement in young people, really allowing a lot more expression of who they are, even in terms of gender identity. A lot of that stuff that's going on right now. And I think there is a movement, and of course, when there's a movement, there's often a counter movement, a kind of a pushback. But I really believe that there is an opening toward more spaciousness that's happening, and I see it a lot, of course, in the spiritual community. you know,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah,
So that would be big.
I think so.
See, one of the things that I love about spaciousness is that it allows, there's room in spaciousness for the lack of spaciousness. It's like there's room for the ego and its constrictions, and there's room for it
Right,
all.
right.
There's
I
room for it
agree.
all. Yeah.
Paradox.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I
There's
love
room
that.
for paradox. Yes.
Yeah, both and, not either or.
Both and. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
I like that you brought that up about the gender issue because speaking of spaciousness, I see like everything is consciousness, you know, where you use the word God, and I respect that. I use the word consciousness.
Yeah.
And
That's a
it's
good
the
word.
same
I
thing.
love it. Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
And so I feel like consciousness is seeking a form that allows its fullest expression. That's a quote by David Bohm. It's not my words, but I really resonate with that quote.
Yeah.
And if we have an attachment to a particular gender, that's not giving consciousness as much spaciousness and freedom because of all of the limitations we attach to gender and roles and so forth.
Yes.
So I see it
Yes.
not as, certainly it's not a personal choice. I see it as an evolutionary movement, and how we as a species are being replaced by another species, same human form, but the operating system is different. And
We're getting an upgrade, huh?
Yeah. It's like the operating system is giving more spaciousness to itself, consciousness,
Oh, I love it.
to
Yes.
flow and interact and not have this kind of codependent attachment. And, you know, the whole thing about gender had to do with mating and procreation. And there's something about evolving past some of those limitations, I think. So consciousness can really reveal itself
Yes.
without those
Yes.
politics, if you will.
Yes. In fact, as you're talking, I can just feel my body just relaxing into the lack of constriction. You know, that consciousness really invites us to open to the deepest parts of ourselves and and welcome them, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I think it's our nature to grow and expand.
Right.
And many of us live as if that's not true, and we have to just sort of try to pounce on ourselves or pound on ourselves or criticize ourselves to try to get ourselves to grow, you know, and change and expand. And what's maybe one of the most important things I've ever learned is that if I want anything to grow, I have to love it first. I have to create spaciousness. Spaciousness and love are really intertwined in my world. You know,
for sure.
because that's the energy of the spaciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. Hence the name Soften to Love.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's really the journey for me in a lot of ways, is to soften to that energy and make more and more room for it to flow freely within me.
Yeah. And soften to know that you are that energy. Soften
Absolutely.
the delineation between there's a separateness, you know, between
Yes.
what we are and what we're seeking, like to know we
Yes.
are that which we seek, and to let go of the seeking and be a finder, you know, in the moment. Like,
yes. Oh, for sure. There's a cute joke about the people in the temple. We're in the temple here, and we're hunting around for the entrance. And we're in it.
yeah. Okay. Why did it take me so long to get that joke?
Yeah. You know, we're looking around. How do you get in the temple? Right here.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice.
We already are that which we seek.
Right.
Yeah. And so I've come to think about enlightenment, for example, as not so much an event. I finally got enlightened and now I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
But more.
Did you say oops? Oops, I finally got enlightened.
Oh, yeah. Oops. No, I didn't say oops.
It
I don't think I
sounded,
did. Hang on a second. I need some water here.
sounded you, it's like you said, oops, I finally got in line.
Maybe I did.
That's
That would be a
hilarious. We'll have to
great Freudian
listen to the replay.
slip. Oh, for
That was
sure.
an oops. I wanted to be a seeker.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I got enlightened.
Oh my gosh. Yes. What I'm coming to see is that that it happens in moments of just being fully present with the spaciousness, with whatever's here. And that we don't stay there. Then we're bouncing back into everyday consciousness and worrying about this and that and fretting about this and that and planning and rehearsing and all that stuff. And then now and then, hopefully more often, we can keep reminding ourselves to, I guess, all's well.
Yeah. I think there was a moment when I had an enlightening moment when I realized what I was seeking. I'm a seeker. I've been a seeker.
Sure.
I guess I realized what I was seeking was to no longer be seeking.
Yes.
And what I realized is that wasn't going to happen in the future. It had to happen right now.
It can only happen right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I called off the search.
Oh, cool.
But I'm still exploring.
But that's different.
Yeah.
That's more like play.
Yeah, like right now, this is
Mhm.
this is having an adventurous conversation, creating
Sure.
space for whatever wants to be known to come up. I'm not trying to get anything out of it, just
Exactly.
be together. And was it a Walt Whitman quote? He said something about, we were together, I forget the rest.
Yep.
Being together and
Mhm.
not needing to have words, or although words are vehicles for.
Sure. That's one of our ways of connecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. So can we bring it back to Qigong and talk a little bit about spaciousness and Qigong? And you were bringing a woman, I can't remember her name, into town when I lived there, and she was doing breath workshops.
Yes.
The Qigong, and I just participated, and it was so connected to the yogic
exactly
that I was doing and practicing. So
that was Lori Ellis, by the way.
Lori.
She's got a beautiful book called Breath is Life. If I can plug that for a second.
Please
it just
do.
came out.
Please.
Oh, yeah.
It just came out?
Just came out. Breath is Life.
Oh, okay.
Lori Ellis.
I'll have to read it.
Lori Young Ellis, and her husband helped her with it too, George Ellis. Yeah, it's just an amazing integration of all sorts of spiritual truth in breath, and how breath opens the door, to all of that, to that kind of presence that we're talking about.
Spaciousness, yeah.
Anyway, so you mentioned her, and then you wanted to ask something about.
Yeah, how did you get introduced to Qigong, and how does that fit in your connection to nature and?
Well, let me ask the second one first.
Okay.
The place where I do my Qigong practice now is almost always outside, in the wilderness somewhere. So every day on these skis that I was telling you about halfway through, there's a couple of really beautiful spots that I just like to stop and take my skis off and do about a half hour of practice. And it just feels like that's it's so much more natural for me, to connect with the energy there, in outdoor spaces.
And I know that park very well.
Yes.
So beautiful.
It's an old quarry, and so there's just gorgeous rock formations and
very grounding.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I met Master Lin. He's my Qigong master, Chenyi Lin, it's the discipline is spring forest Qigong. There's so many versions of Qigong, and they're all really beautiful. We were both teaching at a spiritual gathering. He had a Qigong workshop, and I had something on the alchemy of intimacy, it was called.
I like it.
Yeah, just really, really, speaking about how intimacy grows us. It actually mirrors the path back to spaciousness. In other words, we play with it physically in our relationships, and we struggle with our uniqueness and our oneness, and we try not to create sameness, and we try not to create separation. And in doing so, I believe it's one of the routes back to where we came from, and in the process, of course, we learn a lot. And I believe that grows the universe.
Love.
So the love and what we learn about it not only grows us, but it grows the universe. Yeah. So we're co-creators in a way. Then I think I've heard you use that expression. Yeah.
Yeah. So Junie Lin was leading a workshop.
He was leading, yeah. And so I met him, and I just started the first movement, one of the first basic movements. And within seconds, I went, whoa, I could just feel it. It just felt like I had come to something that I really knew somehow in my spirit, And I had tried to do yoga dozens of times, and I just couldn't get it to work for me. But Qigong happened instantly. And so, yeah, I've been with it pretty much ever since. I've had some periods where I've moved away, but last couple of years I've been really immersing myself in it and deepening with it. Yeah. And one of your future speakers, Jerry Wellick, you're going to really love talking with him about that. He's gone really deeply. Yeah.
Thank you for that introduction. Yeah.
Sure.
We did speak briefly, and we're going to speak next week. So I look
good.
Good. Capturing, recording that conversation for the benefit of everyone. He's had some great success with Qigong for his health, and he's teaching now, and that's so lovely. And he's been with it for over 20 years. So I'd love to dip into that wisdom and have him share it. And so thank you again for that introduction.
Sure.
And I think I don't remember if you introduced me to Richard Chandler, or was it the other way around? I don't remember, but Richard was my first yoga teacher. And I had a conversation with him a while back. And I remember the three of us at the park one day doing yoga.
Yeah, he's a longtime friend as well. That's nice.
Fun to reconnect with both of you.
Yeah. So one of the things that happens with Qigong, and Master Lin's teaching has deepened over the 20 years that I've been with him as well. And so part of what we're doing with some of the movements and then some of the quiet meditations is moving into the emptiness. And for me, emptiness and spaciousness are the same. And in other words, that's one of those paradoxes that
the fullness and the
fullness and and in that, from that perspective, the emptiness is where everything begins. And so everything can begin anew. We move into the emptiness and we do not come back the same. Okay. I think we have many, many opportunities. I'm thinking even moment by moment to emerge from each moment transformed in some way or changed in some way. And maybe it happens in such small increments that we don't get to see it very often. But yeah, I'm thinking more and more my meditation practice is orienting toward the emptiness, toward just being in that deep quiet, and allowing, just allowing. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's nice. I know you've practiced and tried a lot of different things over the years, and so I'm just feeling into the phases of life, right? And everyone's interested in different things at different phases. Like when
Oh my gosh,
you first
yes.
introduced me to Qigong, and I'm guessing it was 2009. I don't know. I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't,
Sure.
It was too slow for me, and I couldn't feel the energy. And so I assumed it wasn't working. And I run into that with students now. If they don't feel it, they're concerned, and I will often say, well, do you feel more relaxed, or do you feel more calm? Or do you notice a change in your mental or emotional energy? And they say, oh yeah. So, well, then you're feeling the energy.
Good. That's a good reframe for sure.
Yeah. And that really helps people go, oh, there is a shift, and the big piece that I'm really wanting to bring awareness to is when we practice in a group in nature, and the compounding effect of a communal practice with the community of nature, all the elements, is something that we can't replicate on our own.
No, I think actually it's like what people used to think of as being in church, perhaps. It's
a fellowship. Yeah.
And yes, exactly. And a sacred space.
Yeah. It's like we're going nowhere together.
Yes.
but there's transportation happening. We're being transported, but we're going nowhere. That. We're rooting. And like you said, the space is full of chi. It's just full of life force. And as we're moving our arms and drawing it towards our body and directing it, the body is just like this sponge eating it up, right? Like our mind could be oriented to some other direction, but the body, it's just anytime we place our attention on the body, there's less anxiety. I've noticed within myself, and having had some surgeries that created PTSD, and coming back from that, just recognizing how anxious the body is when our mind is always somewhere other than the present, and just sitting up straight, taking a breath and calling our attention back to the body. It's like, stroking your dog's back and letting it know, I'm here, I'm home, I see you. It's like that.
It's such a beautiful companionship with our own being.
Yeah, that's a nice way
with our body. Yes. And that's a word that I'm thinking of to describe so many of our journeys, that we're not alone, that we're in companionship, and that as we open more deeply to the companionship of the journey, it is deeply soothing, and for sure the body knows. The body is, I believe, by far the smartest part of us, in these ways, for sure. These ways.
Yeah, I feel like there is a rise in at least, the bubble that I float around in, if you will, because I know I live in a bubble. I'll admit that. And more people that I'm aware of are leaning more towards that yin energy of softening, of acknowledging that there's more to life than we can see and know through our senses, physical senses, and that there's this other sense that's below, if you will, the physical senses, that's coming online in a more receptive way, a more it's been sort of dormant, it feels like to me, in my own system. And it, for different reasons, conditioning, individually and collectively, that part got sort of shut down. And now it's coming back online. And as I trust it and nurture it, I see how relevant it is and how accurate it is and how playful, actually. It's sort of like learning a new language to be in companionship with this sensitive creature. And just, really wanting to, it's like meeting someone and you really want to get to know them more because there's something there in that relationship that is mutually beneficial.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't know how, there's not a whole lot I can add to that, Cyndi. That was beautiful. I'm really, I'm back on that notion that it's in companionship and in relationship, which we all are. It's in, opening to that companionship and to that relationship that we find ourselves expanding. We find ourselves, again, letting go of some of those limits, so that that more and more we are, that all of life, all of love, all of wisdom is accessible as we soften and we companion and we listen and we, in a way, we claim our citizenship of the universe, or in the universe. Would be one way to say it. One way to say it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I love about Qigong. It includes the universe, it's like being the systems within the systems and how interrelated everything is. And I realize that my journey, back to this sensitivity and reclaiming that as what's been my companion my whole life, even though I haven't acknowledged that, it's coming by way of my, my marriage is a part of holding space for that, to experience that in a beautiful way. So grateful for that. And then the community of people that surround me and draw out of me and hold space for me to show up and share, they're all holding space for that relationship in me. And but I also see that they're all me. I know that's pretty cosmic and out there.
Nope, I get you. I totally get you.
The universe, as itself, as me, created itself in all these other forms. It's forming a circle around itself to draw out that nectar that wants to be given, right? Like something inside of each of us wants to be given, and we have to attract like we never give our gift to the world alone. We need a team, right? We need just like when giving birth, you assemble a team to help you bring that life into the world, right? And then there's a team that carries that child out into the world, and it's never done solo. There's nothing.
Yeah.
So,
I love that notion. We help each other far more than we could possibly know.
Yeah.
On this journey. Wow. And so you're speaking really about honoring this relatedness. And there's a lot in our, especially in Western culture, maybe in particular the United States version of it, of this individuality. We just so admire the individual who makes it all happen, and usually it's himself. And that opening to our interdependence and the spaciousness of that, and to our companionship on the journey. it's deeply reassuring
Mm-hmm.
to me,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah. Michael Mead. Do you know who Michael Mead is?
Mhm.
Love. Yeah. He
Mhm.
says, we don't need heroes, like the hero's journey. So we don't need
Right.
heroes. It's about
Yeah.
the genius, like bringing out the genius.
Mhm.
So he makes a distinction between, like, exactly what you're saying, like the individual is more the hero, like the one who rises up and saves. But
Mhm.
the genius is what belongs to everyone, that's unique inside of us.
Exactly. And how we share it and how we percolate each other in ways that, you know, the way ideas or kind of just start spreading, even before people start talking about them a whole lot, it's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's just
Yeah.
it's very, very wonderful for me to see that happening.
Right. Like the
Yeah,
morphogenetic field. Is that what you're speaking
exactly.
about?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's in
yeah.
the field, right?
Hmm. Exactly.
And I think those that are attuned to the sensitivity of picking it up, like I think the sensitive ones are tracking things that are in the subtle field. So before they become physical. So it's kind of like it's not the future in terms of a linear timeline. It's the present now, but in a subtle form.
Gotcha. It's so the present contains the seeds of what we, in fact, contains the future probably, but
Yeah.
for sure, at least the seeds of it,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Wow.
really have noticed this too with practicing Qigong and refining the sensitivity to energy, is that you could call it intuitive or psychic ability has really blossomed, because it's like I know things before they actually happen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but it's because it's already happened in the etheric, it's in the energy field, it's already taken shape. And so there's something about our sensibility, if you will, on these subtler levels that comes online when we slow down. And so I want to speak a little bit about the connection between slowing down and spaciousness. Like spaciousness is always there, but the way to access it feels to me one of the doorways is slowing down.
Beautifully said. Yes. Yes. I think of spaciousness as something that's very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and the stuff that's going on in our minds is noisy. And so it's very difficult to access the spaciousness, when we're in the midst of our noise. And so that's why I think, at least for the stage that I'm at in life, practice is really necessary. Practice quieting, devoting time for quieting and doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it really does develop our acuity, our ability to hear. I'm kind of an auditory person, so I will use that kind of language. For me, it's listening deeply. It's listening to, and that's part of my Qigong practice every day. One of the things that we do in Qigong is at the end, you harvest the energy in this tradition, and you do a bunch of taps and pats and rubs and things like that. And one of the rubs is you take your earlobes and you massage your earlobe, your ears all the way down and tug on the earlobe. But I'm out in the winter here with these big mitts on,
Yeah.
And so what I've done instead is just put them over my ears and just invite myself to listen deeply, listen ever more deeply. And so I've kind of adapted that one. And I think that's really important. I think it's the quiet. So the quiet and the slowing down, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think putting there's so much, like I'm a visual person.
Okay.
So for me, closing the eyes is about turning off the visual distraction to get quiet.
Mhm.
But also closing the eyes and covering the ears, that'd be a double, a double
Yes,
first class ticket.
yes. And you know what I'm doing when I do this, though? It's not I'm trying to block out sound. What I'm doing is sending energy from the
Mm-hmm.
palms, that heart energy from the palms just into the ears and trying to go into my spiritual ears that way. Who knows? That's not something I read somewhere. It just felt
Right.
right to do,
All the
So,
better.
yeah.
All the better that you didn't read it somewhere.
Yeah.
You're trusting your own instinct.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I love what you're sharing because I get this, of course, I said I'm visual. I see you,
Mhm.
cross country skiing, working out
Mhm.
all the stagnation, right? You're
That's
building
right.
up heat, you're moving,
Mhm.
and then
Yep.
you're pausing and doing your practice. So you're,
Mhm.
the decongesting and the tonifying and then the flowing. It's all built in.
Wow. Thank you. I know I like it. That's for sure. And I think that's a good way of explaining why it feels so good,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I've helped people when I try to explain like these three phases of like removing stagnation, tonifying, and then flowing, I think of it like skincare, where
Oh.
you exfoliate the dead cells, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you put the toner on, which prepares the skin to receive the moisture. So the tonifier helps the skin absorb the moisturizer. And so then the tonifying practices, and then the moisturizing is the flow to really circulate the chi through the whole system.
Wow. Thank you. That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah,
It's
people
it's
can
like,
relate.
yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm just thinking about, so there's kind of a cleansing first,
Mhm.
uh, and kind of getting rid of the old in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, especially for someone like you,
Yeah.
when you sit with
Hmm.
people,
Yeah.
your field is absorbing a lot
Hmm.
of what you hear because you're auditory.
Hmm.
That, and I would imagine your work, has really made you auditory and visual. But we, this is like a daily practice, just like taking a shower, the physical hygiene. We have to do energy hygiene because even if
Amen.
we're not physically dirty, our energy field might have other sticky kind of energies that like to attach,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Oh,
Especially
yeah.
a psychotherapist, I would imagine you need
Sure.
to decongest that field every day in some way.
Mhm. No, for sure. For sure. I think without that, there's no way I'd have 48 and a half years under my belt here,
Yeah. Yeah.
that for
Right.
sure. Yeah.
And looking
Yeah.
as good as you look.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had a thought and it just vanished. So I'll
That
just let it go.
happens. That
Yeah.
happens a
Let
lot
it
here.
go. Yeah. Oh my. Oh my.
Yeah. Well, any other thoughts popping in as we come to the close and that you'd like people to know about or
Yeah.
share?
Here's what just popped in. I'm going to invite us to trust ourselves
Mm,
and to trust life and to
love that.
trust the unfolding.
Mm,
Yeah. And to honor the fact that we may not understand it, we may not like it, and that's just part of it, of course, and make space for that too. But really for us to be careful about old stories and not to let them run the show, not to give them too much airtime,
mm,
as a mercy to ourselves. It's like, this actually brings me back to the thought that I forgot. It's spiritual nutrition,
mm,
not taking in you know, and spending all kinds of time and energy with stories that really, really aren't kind. for us or to life.
Mm.
Yeah. So kind of trusting the goodness, trusting the beauty, and trusting the flow, trusting that we're all on the journey, and we don't have to know where it's, what we're doing really too much.
I like it. Reminds me of an evolutionary term called transcend and include. So you transcend your story, but you include what's useful, right? What you gain, so that you don't repeat the same pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. And you may have to repeat it a whole bunch before it gets clear that it's not working. That's
right.
That's part of the deal. The universe is patient with us, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would add, again, this is a little bit more esoteric, but to not take it personal, not take anything personal, because it's not about us, right? Like,
sweet.
I just feel like consciousness is having an experience through each of us as an instrument of its many-armed avatar, right? It's one being in these many different forms experiencing itself and relating to itself. And it doesn't judge a good or bad experience. It's all information. It's all useful. And it's not personal. But when we make it personal, like if we're an instrument that's predetermined to have a lot of trial and error, because that's our nature, we could take that personal and be hard on ourselves that we're not getting it right, when in fact we're providing a lot of, this instrument's providing a lot of data for consciousness about what doesn't work.
Exactly. Yes. I love that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So more playfulness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we don't have to, we don't have to be quite so serious. It's, there are levels where there's kind of life and death going on, but at another level, it's just all life.
Mm. Yeah. Well, thank you for your time. It's been fun.
This has been fun. Thank
I didn't
you.
know what to expect. I just thought, well, let's show up and see what happens. And I like that we went in this direction. And
okay, well, that was a good plan, Cyndi. I love the format of this, and I love the way we just kind of ambled around together.
amble around.
Yeah, really cool.
Excellent. All right, James. Well, thanks again. And find out more about James's newsletter at softenintolove.com. Softening.
Okay. Softening to love. No, wait. Softeningtolove.com. And then I've got all the writings archived there someplace. I think you can find them on one of those bars on top. Say if you want to do that.
Great. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate your time and support, and have a great rest of your day. Bye for now. Thanks again, James. Really pleasure to be with you.
Blessings.